why this is something we wanted to talk about today and say who you are and what led you to get involved in local government and your experience with boards and commissions. So we'll start with you, Bryant.
Sure. So again, my name is Bryant Davis. I'm very happy to be here with y'all today. My track into local government was not the norm. And so I was working in sports marketing, fundraising, and the business I was working with crashed. And I was in Columbia and somebody said, hey, there's an opportunity to work with local government. And I was like, anything but that, please give me something else. But they said they're doing community engagement and you love doing stuff with the community. So, why not get involved? And I thought, I mean, we can see, how this goes. But I found my calling and working in local government. I love serving the public. I feel like you all need to have the opportunity to have a voice in what happens in your communities. And I feel like that is a passion of mine to see people in communities thrive. My role into boards and commissions was a little different also because working in the community, it was kind of like people were asking me to serve on boards versus me going to them. And so as you see the kind of mission in the bio there that I serve on the board with the United Way of Greenville, which of course is kind of the same way, working on local government. Somebody says, hey, we want you to come work with us. And in Columbia, it was quite the same. And so I worked with Historic Columbia. I was on the board for the Columbia Chamber, working with small and large businesses there. Senior resources that worked with our seniors, have a big heart for our seniors and making sure they're taken care of as they continue to progress through life as well. And also worked on a charter board for Richland too. And so mine was, this is the way that I get to learn more about my community and figure out how us as a local government can better support our community. And so I had a very unique opportunity there to work very closely with our county administrator and assistant county administrators and making sure they were informed and making the best decisions they could for Richland County there. And so I'm asked to do the same here for our city manager, being out in the community and understanding what's going on. And she'll pull me in and be like, hey, what do I need to know about this? What is going on? So I've got to be on top of my game to make sure she knows what's going on in that aspect of things. But I cannot say more than if you have a question, if you want to know something about your local government, what's going on, show up to meetings, get informed about what's going on, figure out if there is a passion, if there is a problem, there's an issue that you want to resolve, learn about it, take the time to learn about it, and then figure out how you can get involved in that process. And I'm happy that we're having this conversation and hope some of you in this room, if you're not already involved, will be inspired to be involved in that as well. So.
Thank you. Minelle, your story is really unique and inspiring. Do you want to tell us a little bit more about how you got involved in local commissions?
Yeah, so again, I'm Minelle, Minelle Sarfo-Adu. I'm originally from Vermont and I moved here in 2022 during my senior year of high school. So I got into just housing, just to start with housing, when my parents were looking for housing in a really expensive part of Vermont. And I don't know if you guys know this, but the cost of living in Vermont is drastically higher than it is in South Carolina. And I was the best English speaker in my house. So I helped them with filling out the forms. I helped speak with the realtors. I just did a majority of the work. And at the time I was an 8th grader and it was very difficult. But I quickly fell in love with it and I realized that not a lot of other kids that look like me had to do that. Or kids in general that had to do that. So when I got into high school, I decided to, read some more books on just housing, and I just kept getting more and more interested in housing, and I decided to start a project called The Color of Law with a friend of mine, and we just did a simple study of our state and just tried to figure out how many minorities owned homes, and there wasn't that many. So we decided to create a lesson plan and educate middle and high schoolers on home ownership and racial redlining, discrimination in housing, and just a lot of discriminatory practices that happen. And all of them had no idea what we were talking about. They didn't know what redlining was, and our school taught them nothing about it. So I worked even farther than that and decided to join my city housing board. And at first they said I couldn't do that because I was under 18. So I got mad and I decided that we're gonna create an ordinance that allows me to join. And a lot of people weren't very happy about that because I was a student, and according to a lot of them, I had no idea what I was talking about. So I proved to them I knew what I was talking about. And I did research projects, I wrote essays, I did the lesson plan, and I showed it all to them until they couldn't say no anymore. And they accepted me on the board, and I served for over a year. And then in 2020, I left because I came down here. And on the board, we looked at our community and we said, what can we do next? And I was like, well, how about you look at the students? I was like, because they are the next people that are gonna be owning homes. And so we did. So we bought a bunch of books of the color law, we expanded my lesson plan, and we sent it to every school in Vermont. And we pretty much forced them to teach their kids. The best way I'm gonna put it. So after that, I decided Vermont was too small of a state. And we decided to go to an organization called the Big Picture Organization, which has a bunch of schools all over the country, and we sent it to them too. So there are schools all over the country teaching this, students that are learning about it, and I'm hoping I can get into schools in South Carolina as well, because home ownership is important. Like, it builds generational wealth, and I want kids to know about that. It's just the simplest thing. But that's a little bit about me. I'm also a realtor, and I'm also a senior in college. That's that part too. I do a lot. So, yeah, that's me. Thank you.
Thank you. And I'm Kelly Byers. I serve on City Council and Travelers Rest. This is my 9th year on council. And I have always been interested in local government. I volunteered on campaigns in middle school and high school, and started political clubs in school. And growing up in Columbia, we had this beloved mayor, and he was probably a large part of my inspiration for wanting to serve. And I'm really the kind of person who thinks if you benefit from something, you should contribute. So when I ran for city council, it wasn't necessarily like I'm running against this issue or this person, but really just a greater love of the community and wanting to participate and give back. And so my experience with local boards and commissions is working in tangent with them to make decisions for the city. They are incredibly valuable players in implementing our vision and strategic plan. And one thing I love about local government is that there's really no requirements, there's no qualifications in order to do it. And our commissioners are actually required by state law to go through a lot of training. So even if you don't have a background in planning or elections or zoning, then you are trained and given the capacity to be confident in that decision making. So from a city perspective, we rely really heavily on our commissioners to help us make decisions. So I guess our next question is, what's the role of local government boards and commissions, and what are some examples? So I just mentioned, there are our partners and taking action in the city, but do you want to maybe talk, Bryant, about some of the different commissions in Greenville?
Sure. So I think one that everybody's familiar with always is like the planning commission. So we hear about that a lot. And so some boards and commissions you hear about do have some expertise that they have, or some other places they may want you to have some background in that, but that's not always a requirement. I think the unique thing about that, you're volunteering, but you're all bringing different aspects of diversity to that process. So you have some who are like tailored and know, like they've been planners, they know this. And then you have residents that come in and say, I know that it says this, but this is what people in the community are experiencing. And so seeing people kind of go back and forth, people are like, oh no, what's going on? But that's a part of that process working in local government. We should be able to see that. And so from the staff side, we have all this other background information, but we don't sometimes have that lived experience. And so the different aspects that you as volunteers offer are things that we can't do. People are like, what do you think we should do about this? Well, I can tell you from a historical or from a city standpoint, but you're actually living that. And so the aspects that you bring in, I think, are immensely important to that. And so whether it's, and I was writing a couple of these down as we were saying that, but whether it's our historic review board or whether it's the airport commission, I just encourage you again to like check out those and see what they offer, what they're about, and then, kind of see where you fit in with that.
In the city of Travelers Rest, we only have a handful of commissions. Like Bryant said, the planning commission is the big one. It's the one everyone's aware of. They're so important to the development of cities, and that a lot of projects and activities that come before the city really start with the planning commission. So the planning commission works with staff and votes on approval or denial of those before they ever get to city council to vote on. We also have an election commission, which guarantees fair and safe elections, and they verify election results. We have an accommodations tax commission, which all cities collect accommodations tax through hotels and restaurants, and by state law, there's only a couple of ways that you can spend that money. And so we have a committee who helps us decide what activities people apply for accommodations tax funding. So nonprofits apply for that, festivals, the city itself can apply for that funding for various tourism related activity. And I really love our accommodations tax committee because for all of the commissions, you have to be a city resident or county resident to participate in that. But for accommodations tax, it's all business owners. And so it's a great way for our business owners who don't necessarily live in the city to have a voice in what's happening in the city and what's happening with the money that they're bringing into the community as well. And then we have a couple appeals committees, which are the Board of Zoning Appeals and the Housing Building Appeals. So those are less active committees, but really, really important. And that's a great feedback system and emphasis on fairness. If a developer feels like they got the wrong zoning or wrong decision in a process, and so those committees can step in and hear their appeals. Those committees have tremendous power. So if the Board of Zoning Appeals makes a decision, city council doesn't get to go back and veto what they say. So what they say turns into ordinance. So really, really important. And like I said, all of these committees work in tangent with staff and receive a lot of training to be able to be confident in making these decisions. Did you have anything that you wanted to add? All cities and counties are different. So were there any other commissions in Vermont that you experienced?
We actually had like pretty much the exact same thing. We had like, I think not even a handful, maybe like 2 handfuls of people on each committee. So we weren't like massive council, but we definitely like invited everybody to join in. And even if we didn't have people serving, we had people in the audience, and it was always like an active conversation. So I appreciate you guys have that here too. I'm hoping to learn some more.
I think Brian sort of alluded to this as well, but they're really meant to be an objective voice, and they don't represent a specific district or neighborhood. They're really meant to represent the whole community and bring a lived experience to the decision-making process that maybe staff or council doesn't have. They can also bring historical context, you know, if they've lived there a long time, that they have a lot of value to bring as well. So to further elaborate on that, how do you guys feel that these commissions impact our lives, and why should we take interest in commissions?
Well, I personally want to be able to be the decision maker. Essentially, like I don't want the decision to be made for me. I've been like a bold speaker my whole life, so I don't really like when other people make decisions for me or tell me what I have to do or can't do. So being able to serve on a board, especially when I was younger, allowed me to know that even though all these adults are around me and they seem like they can control everything in the room, I get a say right now. I get a vote. So that's essentially why I love being on it. I just love being able to have a say in the outcome.
So, and I don't want to misquote the statistic, but they say something like 80% of our funding and all our stuff runs through our local areas. You know, there's a smaller percentage in the federal area. So we're always focused on, you know, presidential years, but we forget about like all these local decisions that are made. And so I remember numerous times in Washington County where there would be a vote for a rezoning or something else, and all people would show up and say, we don't want this. And so it would not happen. But proactively, I would say to the community, well, y'all have to start working together now, because if 5 miles down the road, they're building and you wait till they get a mile away from you, well, you're not gonna be able to stop that forever. It's gonna keep coming. And so it's that collective voice and understanding, okay, who makes the decision about what? And so when they put those little tiny signs out in the yard and are like, there's this meeting they're having and it's really, really tiny date, like you've gotta have somebody in your community that's out there that's like, hey, they're trying to build this here, and we don't want this. And so it's still amazing that you have the voice to show up at the last minute, and I would watch sometimes 100, 200 people show up and they're like, oh no, what's gonna happen? And so it stops. But the thing is, like, I encourage people with the local boards and commissions, like, there's voice in that. And so how do you want your community to be shaped? Like, what do you want it to look like? So don't just think about the next stop, like think about what you want it to look like years from now. And so that's kind of the voice of making sure you got somebody in your community that has the time to serve on there. Work with them, get them on there and let them be an additional voice for you. And so, your council members, they're responsible for that too, but they look to these commissions and boards to offer these recommendations for them. So don't discredit that and say, I can only go to my council member for this. Like, you can also be a part of making sure that happens, and learn the people that are on those boards and commissions. Some of them live right in your communities. And so know who those people are and make sure they're informed. So when they're making decisions, that they're making them for the betterment of the community, not just themselves. So.
Yeah, like I said, a lot of the decisions start with the commissions, and so I think that's a misunderstood part of the process, that citizens don't take advantage of the opportunity to engage with them or attend those meetings as well, at least in Travelers Rest. And yeah, it's another way for citizens to engage. And one thing I've really learned to appreciate slowly through my time serving on city council is the slowness of government. It can be incredibly frustrating, but it's intentionally designed that way to create multiple opportunities for engagement for citizens. And so, it starts with them, and oftentimes before it gets to council, people will write to us or call us or speak to us about a particular issue because they saw the sign. And, obviously I'm happy to listen and hear what they have to say, but I always encourage them, please talk to your planning commission because they vote on this before we do. And so it needs to come before us. But I mean, some of the other commissions that you guys have in the city of Greenville or the county of Greenville are really fun and engaging and just create vibrancy in your city, like the public arts commissions. There's a lot of fun ways to get involved in local government as well that, just create vibrancy for us. Anything else you wanna add to that?
I don't know if I said this, but just supporting voices that aren't usually heard. So I don't know if you guys do allow students to be on boards right now, but kids have a lot to say. So I would definitely, if you guys are on boards right now or thinking about it, ask kids what they want in the community and what they want done, so.
Right, well, I think you're the only one of us that served on a municipal commission up here, so maybe you can tell us a little bit more about what it's like on the inside to serve in that role.
It's a lot of work and a lot of dedication, and you have to really love your community, because you will be speaking with a lot of members in your community. And you're gonna see the ins and outs of just what happens, for a lot of the community members, and sometimes there's things you feel like you can't fix. So I guess just don't lose hope. I guess that's the best way to put it. I got to see a lot of things that I just didn't understand. I got to see just community members that had a lot more money, and I was like, wow, you guys are benefiting from a lot of these things, and how about you help other people like learn about how to benefit from these things too? And a lot of people are stubborn. So don't lose hope, don't lose faith, and stay positive, keep talking with everybody, and things will change. Again, as you said, government is very slow, like it's just, things are very slow moving. So you have to just stay engaged, keep reaching out, and keep fighting for what you believe in, essentially. Things will change from there.
there is a lot of homework involved with these commissions outside of, the 1 hour you might spend in the meeting once a month or once a quarter. A lot of applications that require reading beforehand, particularly the planning commission. I know ours are constantly driving around to the different interest areas and taking a look for themselves on what the situation is, what the traffic might look like, hearing the concerns of the citizens and really seeing it with their own eyes. With our accommodations committee, they're reading grant applications and, talking to the city about how each project might benefit tourism in the community. Do you have any other thoughts on what's required to be on a commission?
I think just thinking through the time commitment too as well. Some are like 2-year terms, some are 4 years, some are even 6-year. And so from my experience with a lot of those, being at Richland County almost 6 years, so there were a lot of 3-year terms. So I was coming to the end of a term, or if you were on something 4 years, you're in the middle of a term. And so things happen, change jobs, that kind of stuff happens. But just thinking through, there's minutes and stuff you have to go through, and then you want to be informed on the project. And so, you can kind of tell sometimes when you haven't had the chance, when you're like, hey, I got a question about da, 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 and they're like, yeah, we said that in exhibit A, and you're like, oh. So, making sure you've got the time to know, because you want to be there and be prepared to answer the questions and be able to participate as well. And so, it can seem like an overwhelming process, but it's not. I think if you can say, hey, this is something I see important and I'm interested, like your communities and others can help you in that process as well. Also staff is very, very vital in that process. And so I use the planning commission as an example. I have to meet with our planners because there are a lot of different things we do in the community. They are so knowledgeable about so many different things. And you can ask scenarios, options, what would happen if I did this? There's a lot of that you can do with staff. So, it's all dependent on you to figure out how to make all decisions and how to vote. But I think it's important for you to be able to have that voice and opportunities to vote.
Yeah. Another thing that I mentioned before is that state law requires training for all of these commissions, and that is various levels of time commitment and frequency. And then also, and talking to some people I know who've served on commissions and with other city council members, a lot of them reiterated the need to be bold and opinionated and speak that in the commission meetings instead of, just saying yay or nay, but really you owe it to the public and you owe it to council to explain your position and why you're voting a certain way so that we can take that into account as we make our decisions. So we love bold, opinionated people on commission. I guess our next question here is more about the logistics of when are applications open to serve and what are some of the requirements. And we said before that there's not specific requirements usually, like you're not required to have a specific career or background. That passion is really is the main requirement and a willing to learn. I'll speak for Travelers Rest. We have a portal on our website that's open all the time. So we're constantly accepting applications for people who are interested in commissions. And then whenever we have a seat come available because of a term ending, then we revise all that are in our portal and take an interest that way.
So for the city of Greenville, there are 2 open periods. So you can submit an application anytime, but there are 2 sections. So there's one term that runs from May 1st to April 30th. And then there's another term that runs from November 1st to October 31st. And so the boards and commissioners are broken up separately by those. So depending on which one you're interested in, you would just apply. And so our clerk's office is in charge of scheduling the interviews. So you have an interview with a council member to kind of go through that process and things. I do encourage people, if you apply for one and you're like, I didn't get it, I'm done, don't do that. And sometimes it'll take a little time because in terms of getting that familiarity, council members want to make sure that you're knowledgeable and they can rely on what your recommendations are for that. So if you don't get one, keep applying. When they see names on there like that, that encourages them that this person is involved in the community, they want to be connected to us. And so I would encourage you to do that. Like I said, for example, you talk about accommodations, that's fall. So if somebody was interested in accommodations, they got 3 seats that are coming that are expiring this fall. So if you're interested in doing that, Also, even our Board of Zoning Appeals in the fall, there's 2 open seats for that as well. So those, I would definitely encourage you to go to our webpage and check those out to see which options those are. Read through them and see if they interest you at all. And I would encourage you, if you see one that you're interested in, see when they're meeting next. Go check out the meeting, see if this was something that I would be interested in doing, that I feel like I have a place here. So when you go to that interview, you have your arm with the information, you know what's going on. And I feel like that could offer you an opportunity to be connected and get involved.
And on your tables, there's information about all the municipalities, including Greenville County and their processes and openings. So, you know, it's different for each municipality. So wherever you live, make sure you're looking specifically into that. And then Yvonne, is it okay if I put you on the spot? Yvonne here is the director of the Human Relations Commission with Greenville County. So maybe you can provide some insight on a county level of what it's like to apply and serve.
Okay, yes, good afternoon, everyone. Our board consists of 12 individuals, and they each represent a district. We have 12 county councilmen, and so each person represents that county. That's the only, I would guess, restrictions that they have. They accept applications twice a year. You can go in Greenville County's portal and look for county council, and then on the left-hand side, I believe it is where you can find the boards. So the boards are listed there. And I would suggest, if you're interested in a board, make certain that you research the organization, make certain you have a passion for it. Doesn't make sense to join somebody or an organization you're not interested in. You're not gonna have a say-so, you're just gonna be like a pew member.
And
So
the
I would
county,
encourage you,
the
yes.
county requires that you have attended one of the commission meetings before you apply. So
Yes.
you have to do a little bit of homework at least.
Yes, do your homework, make certain that's what you're interested in, okay? And, but like we've already said here, I think it's a wonderful way for individuals to get involved with what's going on in your communities. And it's so easy for us sometimes to say, I don't think that should be happening, I don't think that's right. But if you don't have a say-so in it, then what can you say? But again, the portal is open. I mean, we accept applications, I believe it's twice a year. Go online and look, and, so,
Thank you.
okay.
All right, what advice do you all have for someone who's considering applying for a state or local board or commission?
Well, just as Ron said, I would just say have a passion. You gotta have a passion for what local board or commission you're joining. And obviously do your homework so you know what you're talking about and what you're learning about, and just be ready to speak up. You're gonna hear a lot of things that you don't agree with, and just respect other people's opinions and respond as you would want to be responded to. And just remember that, like, love your neighbor, so just remember that we should just treat other people the way that they want to be treated and how we want to be treated as well. And yeah, just respect for all humans.
I also have one more thing to add. It's a wonderful resume builder for those of you who are trying to enhance your career.
I think it's also really enlightening about the government process, but you know, even if you attend a lot of meetings, it's very different on the other side and you really start to understand more of the process. But do you have any advice for people who are interested in serving?
So, Minelle made me think about, so the city of Greenville does have a youth commission. I think they can actually serve up to age 20 or 21. But we have it for city. I'll go ahead and tell y'all, if y'all got kids in the county and they're interested, have them talk to us, because that youth commission is so important. You know, you think you go in a room and they're probably gonna ask you questions like, what do you like about your job? No, they wanna know, like, how do I go through the process of becoming a city council member? Like, what made you decide to run? Like, what values do you have? And I'm going, wow, these kids are like really on it. So they're really on it. So, that to me, that passion starts then. But I think, for somebody considering that, I would, again, some of what's been shared, I would really take some time to look at something that you're passionate about, something that you're interested in. There generally is some board or commission that fits some mold of that. But I know for me, just being passionate about making a difference in your community. It may start with just getting involved, with your neighborhood, and then it can kind of build from there. So I don't think you gotta go to the page today and say, I found this board commission, I'm gonna do this today. I think start working through that process. I always encourage people, I never would have done it before I was in local government, but attend your city or county council meetings, learn what's going on. The first time I ever attended one was after I was an employee, so that doesn't really count. But take some time to learn about what's going on, what you see, and I think there's ways then that you can find opportunities to plug in then. But I would highly encourage everybody to, seems like we're always saying, we want more people to be involved, but I think also it's our role as local government to make sure we're continually coming to you and telling you about opportunities. We can't expect everybody just to go to the website and find it. And so I'm very happy about this opportunity to have y'all here to hear, and I hope you will take the time to share that with others as well.
I also want to say, I know the city of Greenville does a really good job of citizens academies.
Yes.
Of, you have a fire.
So we got fire, police, and we have our Green Link transportation. And so they're about 6 to 8 weeks, one night a week, that you get to spend with either police, fire, or Green Link, learning about the processes. I always have told people, I think, they're not all important, but I think police is really important because we know in the years that have passed what happens. Going through that academy gives you a better understanding of what they're going through, the training they go through, what they see. And as a resident and as a citizen, you're like, oh, okay, I think I can understand this a little bit more. But our police, fire, and Green Link do. I think police and fire, I know for sure in the fall. So if you're thinking about that in the fall, that could be an opportunity to do that. But those are phenomenal opportunities to learn the ins and outs of departments, how things work. As whole.
I know Travelers Rest is in the process of working on a youth citizens academy just for city council. And then I think there are some other municipalities in the upstate that do youth councils or youth classes. And so I think that's a really great way to continue to learn more. I know you guys are a curious bunch, and you know, if you're not quite ready to make the step to serve on a board or commission, that's another great way for you to continue your learning about municipal government. And I also want to introduce Amy Bolin here, who is with South Carolina Women in Leadership, and you all have a wonderful training process for people who are interested in serving on commissions. I'd love if you would share a little bit about that.
Sure, and again, I feel like we're talking to the choir here. So you all are very engaged, you know your communities, and so sometimes it is a little overwhelming, and I didn't get a chance to ask if anybody would want an extra copy. If we want to make extra copies, we have a checklist on the local government appointment process, and that is actually online, and I do have some cards with QR code, but you can grab one of these. What we offer at South Carolina Women in Leadership is a self-paced lesson course that you can walk through, and it tells you about boards and commissions and what's expected. We also have on our appointed boards and commissions page, a little button at the bottom that gives you an opportunity to schedule your one-on-one consultation with Emily Bowerman, who is our South Carolina Women in Leadership Board and Commission guru, who helps to get you set up in a way that you might feel more comfortable. So there's so many resources that are out there, you all, and this is fabulous. All the information in a one-pager is excellent. And if anybody wants more information about the checklist process, I'm gonna hang out. A couple things to add to what they've already shared is that with staff on your city or your county or your local municipality, check out who is your clerk. Your clerk will be your best friend. You need to know who the clerk is. Let your representative know. So in the county, if you've got 12 different county council people, let them know you're going to apply for this position, contact them. Often the board and commission has their own staff liaison. So let them know that you are running or in the consideration for that. I will say that with Greenville County and Greenville City, your chances of being on a board of commission are very small. I'm just gonna be honest with you, because when you have 50 people applying for one library board position, they don't need a whole lot of bodies. So it might be better to think about some of these more, local to you municipalities. There's also the municipality website, MASC, that has a wonderful tool. And again, all of this is available to you, and I'm happy to talk to anybody afterwards, but great information. And again, we want people to be involved in their local community because we know it matters. Anyone want to take a guess how many people in South Carolina voted for the primary?
Not-
Not to 17.
13.
It's close.
13%, and, in the state, 5 for the runoff, 5%.
Let's see.
Okay, so that's tough. So if we want to make some changes, doing something locally in your board and commission that is a feed forward, as I love the metaphor about the mileage thing, and you know, you don't want to have this thing a mile from your house before it happens. That is a great metaphor. I love that. And so I'm here to talk with anybody who wants more information, and get you connected to our website, get you connected to a, one-on-one consultation and our self-paced lessons.
And Amy, if gentlemen are interested,
We love our allies.
okay.
Absolutely love our allies, and we are
Sure they
never
can.
going to turn our allies away. But we know that South Carolina is 49th in the country when it comes to female representation. And so we know that the gentlemen already have a seat at the table. Sorry, but you do.
I'm
And
sure
so
you can look at their resources.
you can absolutely access all of our resources. And as a matter of fact, we just posted our first gentleman on our board. So, again, it's not that we are holding anything away. All of these resources are free. Everything on our website is free. So all of the training, all the self-paced lessons, your opportunity to meet with Emily, all of that is free. Did it cost us something to put this together? Absolutely. Would we love your donations? You bet. But we are absolutely not putting anything behind a paywall and saying you must check a box to say your gender before you access this information.
And if you want to go ahead and jump into running for elected office, they have a lot of resources and training for that.
Yes, but today we're only boards and commissions. We'll be able to elected offices as well, and I'm happy to talk with you about that also. But I will say, being on a board and commission not only builds your resume, it also gives you the foot in the door if you do decide to move forward in that elected position, because one, you have name recognition, people know you know, and to know what's going on in your city and county before you step into that elected position is just a really good thing.
Great, thanks. Amy. Okay, does anyone in the room have questions?
So we're talking about applications a lot, which is great, but who does the approving? And who does the selection of the one person out of 50?
How's that working?
So for the city, so the clerk is the person that's gonna get the application and present that to the council members. Generally for ours, there's 2 council members that you would interview with. And so they're the ones that make the decision. Now, that is very transparently, if there's somebody's term that's expiring and they decided they want to run again, or they want to be in pension again, you still have them sitting there and then you have the new individuals. But that goal is supposed to be, if we've got somebody that's run and gone through, you know, generally it's kind of thank you for your service to the next person, but there are times where you only have a handful of people. So if they haven't ever run for anything, then you kind of have that being an issue. And that's why I think it's so essential that you kind of do some scouting before to kind of figure out what it is that you want to do. I think, again, the idea about emailing them prior and letting them know that you are interested, kind of making that connection, I think, especially when it's the first time, I think is essential in that, because just saying, hey, here's my application, I hope you're gonna know that I'm interested is not gonna work. And as you mentioned, and I appreciate the transparency in that, when you have 40, 50 people trying to get in for one position or 2 or 3 positions, that likelihood is challenging. And so when we have opportunities where we have a year where there are like 5 or 6 positions open, that's a better opportunity if you have 10 or 12 people to get your foot in the door versus when we got 1 seat that's gonna be open.
I know for the county, the clerk receives the application. And then, the interviews is through, county councilman. The person or people are interviewed by county council, and then they select it. So this is a great idea to send that county councilman that's in your district to let him know or her know that you're interested in your money.
Anyone else in the room have questions? I know we had a bunch on the.
I don't have a question, kind of, but just a comment, haven't served on Green Link before.
Oh, great.
And just the vetting process of, being interviewed, and what I did was, I went to my city council person. And actually, she was at our meeting saying they needed people on the board, you know. So that was my first interest. I had gone through the Police Citizens Academy already. Was already involved to a certain degree with, United Way. So when I got interviewed, my council person interviewed me, but also another council person interviewed me. And so it was a great experience for me just to get to know, and because I was interested in transportation. Because when I first came to Greenville, I didn't realize Greenville didn't have transportation like Atlanta had. I didn't even have a car in Atlanta, but I could get from point A to point B, and people ask me now and say, you go to Atlanta a lot, how do you get around? I said, I know how to navigate the modern system, so that's how I get around. But there was no bus system here, and the last bus on Saturday left at 5:30, and like, are you serious? You know, so that was, for me, that was where I was, and as I continued to get involved in the community and involved in other things, and you talked about knowing what's going on in your community, it's very important. You all know that we fought against the woman that's gonna happen down the street. I mean, we had allies, and that's what you have to do. You have to build your allies and make sure you've got enough allies. You may not win, like I told them. I said, we didn't win. We had to win, but we didn't win the way we wanted to win. That is to stop the project completely. But we had wins where the building size came down, the height came down, different things happened. And so I think as you begin to think about being involved, be involved in your community and know what's going on in your community, be a voice. Whether, you know, people like you or not, continue to be a voice, because at some point they hear you.
I would like to do the keto on you, because we had a situation on Ashmore Bridge Road and Ranch Road and all of it. And as you said, sir, with a little sign, with a little orange sign, it was like, and then you call that number 467, but no one ever calls you back. So then you wait for that blue and white sign, and it is very, very small. The date and all, and so we did go, and for 2 years, we stopped the, development on Ashmore Bridge and Ranch Road for 2 years. But then to be honest with you, there was a Judas on the council. And I just have to be honest. And the developers were enlightened as to what to do. And then when we went back the third time, we lost. But to say what you said, in the fact that we kept being focused and kept speaking with them, they did bring it down from 96 units to 76. Instead of, you know, those little roads that you have a little sign that says turn with the little arrow. Now you gotta put up a stop sign. You know, you gotta put up a traffic light, you gotta put a traffic light. And you have to work with the new developers, which are DR Horton. They have to work with the people that are already established. And you're putting like 76 homes in the back of a development that is custom made, which is only like 12. So they're gonna have to work with Cardinal Estate in, you know, making sure. And I thought it was funny when DR Horton was presenting for the second time, that they said, well, you can use the pool. I'm like, these people have custom homes. If they wanted a pool, they could have put in a pool. So, but again, they did have to make accommodations. And it was heart-wrenching. It was heart-wrenching when we lost.
Right, we have just 2 minutes left, so do we want to go to
Did you see
questions
a
online?
question?
I saw a couple pop up.
See the one about the commission and email list?
Yes, okay,
Okay.
so Mark asked, do the commissions have email lists so we know what is coming before them?
I don't believe, I can check, I don't believe there's like a list. What I think the best thing would be to do is to contact the clerk. So you can be a part of that list, so they can send that out when there is an opportunity. And so, I know our clerk has been really adamant about making sure that we're more vocal about our boards, but not only more vocal, but there's more diversity on our boards. So, that aspect of things too, as well as making sure that the word is getting out about what's going on. So I would definitely, if you go to any municipality, county, contact the clerk, connect with the clerk. Hey, listen, I'm interested. Is there an email list? How do I make sure I know, not just now, but continually, would be a great opportunity. And you'll be surprised. It may take a little while for the clerk to get back to you, but they're gonna be like, oh, thank you. Because having a roll list of people, when somebody says we need somebody for this, there can be that connection point made with you in terms of connecting with one.
And in case, I think the question could have gone 2 ways of what's on the agenda for the different commissions. So all of that should be public on the website, and it's different for each municipality. I know the City of Travelers Rest, we have a newsletter, we have an app, we put it all on social.
But there are some commissions, and be careful, that are TBD. They do not meet regularly. So
That is
that is
true.
another reason why you need to be in touch with your clerk, because there isn't any information. The Natural Historic Board and Commission, to be determined whenever they meet. So if you want to go to their meeting, and that's a requirement to be on the commission, you need to know when they're meeting so that you can check that box off. So it does take a little bit of time, and also we didn't talk about state boards and commissions, but state boards and commissions, talk about slow government, that's even slower. So be patient on that one.
Okay, I think that was the only question I saw in there unless I missed something. Okay. Well, thank you all so much. Do you have some closing
Do
words?
you,
for us?
well, I was gonna ask if you have any closing comments.
Anything we didn't talk that we need to say?
No, I think this is just a great conversation. Thank you guys for all being here and being engaged in the process. I hope you'll, be able to take something from this and got some tangible tidbits of something that you can utilize in your community, with other community members. But yeah, this is an important conversation, and I hope that you walk away knowing that it is important. So a lot of these decisions and things play from a lot of these boards and commissions, and so hope you'll get involved.
Like I said, a lot of the agendas and the meetings are online, so you can watch them live usually, or find them on social media or YouTube and see what's going on and who your commissioners are. As you all mentioned, I say this about city council, but it's true of commissions. Go to the meetings and get to know your representatives before you have an issue. It's much easier to have those hard conversations when you already have an established relationship with the people representing and serving you. So, anything else you want to add?
I just want to say thank you again for allowing me to speak. And I just think that everybody should serve any way they can so that they can get a say in the outcome. And also that serving just gives you grace and patience for good government.
Great. Thanks.